What happens when a hedge fund star programmer refuses to be bullied back into a city he hates? When his boss tries to strong-arm him into obedience, he flips the power dynamic and ends up with a 15% raise and the boss removed. This isn't just a work-from-home story. It's about leverage, self-respect, and playing the long game. If you've ever been underestimated at work or pressured into a bad deal, smash that like button. And stay tuned, because the ending of this story will make you want to stand up and cheer. Tim had been coding since he was 7. While other kids were learning to spell, he was building little text-based games on an ancient computer in his parents' basement in Michigan. By the time he hit college, his classmates were struggling through loops and data structures while Tim already knew them cold. He breezed through computer science courses, graduated early, and went straight into Silicon Valley's elite: Google, Facebook, Amazon. His resume was a wall of blue-chip names and impossible projects. By his 30s, he was a lead programmer at a hedge fund, managing AI systems that executed millions of trades a day. Each line of code he wrote moved real money, big money. The irony? Despite all this, he still answered to Larry. Life under Larry, 2 minutes. Larry wasn't a monster in the cartoon sense. He didn't yell or throw things. His style was quieter, but no less toxic, condescension disguised as leadership, constant little power plays, and an assumption that everyone's life should revolve around the office. Larry lived for control. He loved New York's high-rise energy, the 7 a.m. meetings, the "if you're not in the room, you're not in the game" culture. And he assumed everyone else did too. Tim tolerated it. The pay was great. The projects were cutting edge. But then COVID hit, and everything changed. When the lockdowns came, Tim set up his home office in his $4,500 a month Manhattan apartment. Screens glowing, Zoom calls stacked back to back. But between sprints, he'd stare out the window at concrete and think about grass. About space. About home. So he did something radical. He left. Quietly. He bought a sprawling property back in Michigan, a heated pool, a 3-car garage, a big yard. Even a 2-bedroom guest house he turned into a man cave lined with monitors. His mortgage was half his old rent. He kept coding. Kept delivering. Never officially told the hedge fund he'd moved. And nothing slipped. The AI kept humming. Deadlines were met. Life was good. Conflict escalation, Larry's ultimatum, 3 minutes. Then came the phone call. Larry. All right, Tim, Monday we're back in the office. Tim. Yeah, about that. I moved to Michigan. A long pause on the other end. You didn't even ask if you could do that? Tim smirked. I didn't know I needed your permission to move. The sarcasm hung in the air like ozone before a storm. Larry's tone hardened. You need to move back to New York, or you won't have a place on the team. Tim reminded him he'd been doing the same high-level work from home for a year. He even offered to fly to New York for meetings on his own dime. But Larry didn't budge. If you don't have any desire to live in NYC, Larry snapped, then I have no desire to keep you employed. In that moment Tim realized something. They needed him more than he needed them. Tim quit. Just like that. He hung up the phone, leaned back in his chair in Michigan, and felt the shock give way to a strange calm. He wasn't a junior coder scraping by. He was a top-tier AI specialist with a decade of experience. If this hedge fund didn't want him, another would. And he knew something Larry didn't. Complex code is like a fingerprint. Replacing the architect isn't plug and play. It's a nightmare. 6 weeks passed. Tim swam in his heated pool. He tinkered in his man cave. Meanwhile, back in NYC, the hedge fund's AI system sputtered. Bugs multiplied. Deadlines slipped. Maintaining a massive codebase without its author is like navigating a labyrinth blindfolded. Every quick fix broke something else. The programmers left behind were drowning. And then Tim's phone rang. John enters the picture, 3 minutes. It wasn't Larry. It was John, the CEO. The big boss. John was polite, almost deferential. He admitted the team was struggling. They wanted Tim back. Could he fly to NYC to talk? Tim saw his moment. No, he said evenly. If you want to discuss my employment, you'll fly to Michigan. Silence. Then John agreed. 2 days later, a private jet landed in Tim's hometown. They sat in Tim's living room, leather chairs, sunlight spilling across the floor. Outside, the pool sparkled. Inside, Tim had the leverage. The negotiation, flipping the power dynamic for minutes. John opened with an offer, come back, but at a 20% pay cut. Cost of living adjustment, he called it. Tim didn't blink. No. I want a 15% raise above what I was earning. John tried the usual logic. We pay what we pay because we ask people to live in NYC. It's expensive. Tim leaned forward. You pay what you pay because I'm worth it. If I wasn't, you wouldn't be paying me. My first condition is a 15% raise. John exhaled. And second? Tim's eyes were steady. I'll come back so long as Larry isn't there. That landed like a thunderclap. John rubbed his temples. You're asking for too much. Tim shrugged. You don't need to bring me back. I'll be fine elsewhere. John, I'll talk to the partners. Tim, my offer's good until Friday. John blinked. What do you mean? Tim, next Monday I start looking for work. This offer expires Friday. It was Tuesday. The wait, high stakes, 1 minute. Tim let John leave. He spent the next 2 days working out, coding side projects, walking his yard. He wasn't bluffing. By Monday he'd be on the market. But he also knew the hedge fund's pain was only growing. Every bug, every lost trade was another dollar slipping away. Thursday the phone rang. Tim, John said. We're transferring Larry to a different fund. He won't be working with you anymore. And we're fine with giving you a 15% raise. Can we send you an offer letter? Tim smiled. Of course. And Larry's really gone? Yes, John said. You will never need to interact with Larry ever again. Click. From his Michigan man cave, Tim looked out at his yard, at the guest house that was now his command center. He hadn't moved. He hadn't caved. And now he had more money, more freedom, and no Larry. Sensory and internal details, woven in. The hollow echo of Larry's voice over speakerphone, issuing ultimatums from hundreds of miles away. The smell of coffee and chlorine as Tim took John's call beside his pool. The steady drum of his heartbeat during the negotiation, masking a quiet thrill. The moment of stillness after John agreed, like a chess player realizing checkmate. Dialogue enhancement, examples. Larry, you didn't even ask if you could do that? Tim, didn't know I needed your permission. John, you're asking for too much. Tim, then don't bring me back. John, Larry's gone. We'll give you the raise. Tim, send the offer letter. The same boss who once told Tim if you don't want to live in NYC, I don't want you on the team had been removed. The man who assumed power was a one-way street had been outplayed by the quiet kid from Michigan. And Tim didn't just win. He rewrote the rules. Here's the lesson, leverage isn't about shouting. It's about value. When you know your worth, you can walk away, and sometimes that's the only way to make them chase you back on your terms. If you've ever had a boss like Larry, drop a comment below. Would you have walked away like Tim did? Hit that like button if this story gave you ideas, and subscribe for more true revenge stories where the underdog turns the tables.